Welcome to the Value Added Podcast. My name is Bill.
My name is Jared.
Today, we're going to talk about the greatest challenge as a leader, and that is leading yourself. And we're also going to give you 5 practical ways to overcome that challenge. But we also want to talk about why is leading yourself so important. So I want to talk about something that John Maxwell writes about in his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And that is the law of the lid, the law of the lid. And some of you may have heard of this. So if you put your leadership skill ability on a scale of 1 to 10 and you're growing in your leadership journey and you've reached a 7, well, you're never going to grow someone past a 6. There's going to be a lid of what you can do and to impact other people, influence other people, unless you yourself are growing. I don't know about you, Jared. I'm looking forward to getting better. And so I have a greater impact in people's lives, not for my sake, but for what can multiply over into them and then them into others and so forth and so on. So the law of the lid, that's why we are passionate about growing ourselves. We're not done. We've been reading books together. We've been watching leadership podcasts and absorbing and saying, hey, I need to practice that. So, and we're going to talk about those 5 practical steps that's going to help you move through and overcome leading yourself.
And keep in mind, as we go through these 5 principles or points, whatever you want to call them, applications, we're never done growing. If we think we've arrived, that's the end of your journey of leading yourself. And that's something Bill and I talk about often. If I ever come with an attitude to the table with any leadership or other leaders, developing leaders, and I think for a moment that I've arrived, that's the end of growth.
It's particularly in our philosophy of leadership, which we agree with John Maxwell on, it is we're looking to add value to others. We're not looking to get you to do things our way so we look better. In his book, one of his books, he talks about the difference between success and significance. And both Jared and I want to live lives of significance and not success. Well, what's the difference? Success is when you add value to yourself. You get a better house, better car, second home, bigger paycheck.
Sounds good though.
It sounds wonderful, right? But what really drives leadership is the significance aspect of
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Adding value to others. When you add value to others, then you're multiplying, and they themselves will in turn add value to more others. So, we just can't give what we don't have. If we are not growing, I can't help someone lead past me. I can only help them lead up to me. We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. And we can't get past that unless we ourselves are moving up through our growth.
Yeah.
So you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you won't go, is a saying I've been using for a long time. And so you can't grow people until you yourself are grown.
So with that said, we're going to give you number 1, again, of 5 principles. I'm going to give it to you now, and Bill's going to walk through a couple different quotes, kind of help us understand this first point, which is practice following. Practice following. So you got a quote here by John Maxwell. It says, only a leader who has followed well knows how to lead others well, which is kind of what you were saying. Good leadership requires an understanding of the world that followers live in.
Another way I look at that is grow where you're planted, right? And a phrase we often use is leaders lead no matter what job title they have, no matter where you are, what position or role you have, you can influence others. You really can. We talked about in the last episode how people are watching, and we don't realize who really is watching us and that we have the potential to influence others. So you really can't grow people until you yourself are growing.
That's such a good point. You can't give what you don't have, you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you won't go.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the idea, the practical points of really practicing what it means to follow.
Amen. Yeah, indeed. And then you had a trip you were going to talk about.
Yeah, I have in my leadership experience, one of the things that I was given the opportunity to do, was so blessed by it myself as a leader, but I was in charge of planning and leading a number of missions trips from our church, international missions trips, from our church down to the country of Haiti. If you know anything about Haiti, it's one of the most extreme places for poverty in the world. And I was given the opportunity again to lead trips. And what that looks like is I had to coordinate the everything from flights to what was going to be happening while we were there. And I really began to understand because I'm not the biggest travel person. I mean, Bill kind of knows this about me. I'm a little anxious, when I got to get on a plane, and I'm that guy who people are kind of like probably looking at like, what's this? Do you feel okay? Yeah, is he gonna make it? Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not that bad, but I have my moments. So traveling for me is, although I enjoy it, my wife loves it. For me, it's kind of like, okay, but we could also stay home too. So, but in saying that, I really began to learn that I can't. I have to actually go
Yeah.
to lead these people with me. If I'm not there, that it doesn't work that way. So what I learned by default was leading people. I had to go and physically be where they are. And that was really a big lesson for me. I kind of wanted in my mind, if I could just like, wrap this into a nice little package and then like put the label on it and ship this trip.
Yeah.
But you can't do that. So I really began to learn what it means that you can't lead where you won't go.
Yeah.
That was a very physical application of that. And one of the things that kind of came out of that for me was the ability to, again, we talk about leadership as influence, right? I got to partner with one of my best friends at the time, and her and I got to do this together. And so I got to learn things from her. I called her the mom of the trip. She would get the sunscreen. She'd make sure everybody was on the airport, on the shuttles on time and all that stuff. She'd help me lead. And so again, by default, I learned that you can't lead where you won't go, but something we'll probably talk about later. You also can't lead without some help.
No, this leadership is not a solo trip.
I had to follow
Yeah.
her example in many areas, practice following and just following her, but I was also going. So
Well, yeah, even the context of it's not solo because you're following someone else, you're practicing following. Even the leadership journey to have it's a team effort. You're always learning from peers that are in leadership positions as well as watching those who you're under as a leader. And I've had some wonderful leaders I've watched, I've observed, I've taken notes. I go, I like the way they do that. I'm going to start doing things that way. But I've also had leaders where no way, that just did not come across the right way. That didn't happen the best way possible, impacted the team this way. I am not going to make those mistakes. So when you're practicing following, you're looking for both opportunities to improve and go, okay, that's not what not to do. And then over here's, yeah, that's what I do want to do. So number one, we want to practice following. That's your first step of the five.
absolutely.
So, and number two, you want to practice measured growth. Well, what do I mean by practice measured growth? When you're growing as a leader, it's not like, oh, I did this. I'm arrived. I'm 100% there. I got it.
Yeah.
I can repeat that every time, all the time. And you can't because circumstances are nuanced. They change. Relationships in the work environment, in a nonprofit, volunteer environment are messy. We're messy people. We all have our own history, experiences, baggage, wounds, and that all comes together. And we got to remember leadership is about people. It's not necessarily about a statistic or a number or the goal. It's all about growing people and pulling them up by their heart as you do so.
Yeah.
So practicing measured growth, the measured self-growth, for a long time, I've had a rule of the 5% rule of growth. My birthday's in the summer and of course, Christmas in the middle of winter. So for a number of years, I got to my birthday and I looked back and how did I do in the last 6 months? Have I changed any? Have I gotten better in my leadership skills? Am I doing any better? Or what are other people saying me about me now that's different from 6 months ago?
Right.
Then I'd get to the Christmas and ask the same question. So and you can't ask it a week later,
Right.
right? You got to have some time go by. You've got to practice and move forward. And then after you've had that significant time, look back and evaluate. And you have to evaluate yourself. And that's why leading yourself is one of the greatest challenges, because I always don't see clearly when I'm trying to lead myself.
Yeah, and that leads me in my mind back to the idea when I lead teams. Again, I'm coming at this from a ministerial kind of a churchy setting. Bill encouraged me to do this a while back, and I've been doing it now for quite some time. I'll often ask my leaders during these times for me of reflection, hey, how am I doing? Those above me, but those below me as well. In both of those spheres, I'll ask them, it's kind of like a job review.
Yeah.
In a way, but you're asking, is there anything I could do better? And hearing that it does two things. Hearing it from people who are, they're looking up to you is really a strange feeling at the first time you do it. Only because their eyes get wide and like, wow, he actually cares about my opinion of his leadership, right? And it really begins, you said about pulling people up by their heart. That's one of the biggest ways you can level up your influence with people, is by being raw, being real. But measuring your growth by those who are under you, and you may have to eat the meat, spit out the bones, if you've ever heard that, but really think about what it is they're bringing to the table about who you are as a leader and also as a person.
I did something very similar in my work. I a long time have had a goal to get that next promotion. And I had one of my previous bosses say, what's my brand? What are people asking about me? The different projects I've been involved with, the different teams I've been on. And I said, can you do me a favor? Because they probably won't tell me honestly to myself, to my face. Could you go back and here are key people that I interacted over a significant period of time, and ask them, what stands out to you about Bill? What's his greatest strengths? What are his greatest opportunities? What makes him a good leader? What challenges does he have?
Irritates you about Bill?
What irritates you about Bill?
Yeah.
And he did that for me. He came back from really qualifying areas of opportunity, and also affirmation of areas I know and suspected that I'm doing okay or well in.
Yeah.
So getting back to the 5% rule of growth, what is that? Right? It's about progress, not perfection. It's about progress, not perfection. And it's also not, like I said earlier, just doing it once and you've arrived. It's practice. It's doing it daily. Can I be 5% better tomorrow than I am today?
And we're going to do this the minute we shut this video off.
We're
recording. And part of that is listening to yourself as a leader, measuring your self-growth.
Indeed.
That's painstaking and kind of a pain, but
wow,
does it help?
Yeah, you have to self-inspect. You really do. If you're a reader, you may want to check out a book called Atomic Habits. He makes it even simpler. He has a 1% rule of growth. Just be 1% better tomorrow than you were today.
So you're leveling it up a little bit more.
I am. I had a bit more of a challenge, but to be honest, that was my saying for years, long before his book came out.
Right.
But he has the scientific, data-driven results of just doing 1% better today than tomorrow.
Absolutely.
It's a compound interest. If you know the financial terminology, if you're growing with compound interest, what was 100% yesterday is now 101 the next day. And 5% of that is just a little bit bigger than the original 100, right?
Yeah.
And it just continues and reinvest and it compounds and it grows exponentially after time. Financial advisors talk about retirement accounts and compound interest and the power of investing early. And it's so true with leadership too. And it's never too late to start with leadership. You always can start growing now and start building that compound interest of measure self-growth.
Yeah.
Consistency builds momentum. Consistency builds momentum, right? As you grow that compound interest, the consistency grows it faster than it could if you did it for a week, took a week off, did it for a day, took a day off.
Yeah.
It's kind of like flossing your teeth, which I hate doing. It's, if you floss your teeth every day, you're going to have clean, healthy teeth.
Mhm.
But if you're doing it once a week, once every 6 months,
Absolutely.
and it's okay to miss a day, but don't miss 2 days, right? You want to make the consistency work for you, not against you.
Yeah, one of the ways that I found for me, I recently went through a personal fitness journey, right? So this whole idea of consistency, building momentum, I would hear things like, consistency triumphs intensity.
Yeah.
Like I go to the gym and I started doing this, what is it, a few years ago now, I think it was, I I was coming at this fitness journey. I just want to be able to keep up with my kids. I want to be
Yeah.
able to go hiking with my wife. I don't want to have to, trying to breathe and all of that. So I decided, it's time for me to lead myself in a way, like we talked about in the last session, and have some consistency that'll build some momentum. So I did that. And one of my mantras you'll probably hear me say is learn, apply, and then grow. And so for me, I kind of took that to the gym because the gym can be an intimidating place if you haven't been before. You walk in and there's all kinds of, they look like torture machines. If you think of Brian Regan, really talks about like a comedian, I'm going
Yeah.
to go
I'm
to the gym.
paying to do
Yeah,
this.
paying to sit in this. What do I even do with it? And so I ended up partnering with a buddy and I just decided I'm going to learn something about a machine or about, this area of fitness. And then I'm going to apply it and then I'm going to watch myself grow. But that took consistency. And even so much so too, I even woke up this morning and I was like, I just don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right. But I've had to say no if I don't want to miss because the consistency builds the momentum. And after you go for a while, you do start enjoying it. You do see benefits. I feel good. Right. But this translates to developing leaders, as they see and follow your example.
Yeah.
Right. So everything from consistency building momentum, my whole learn, apply, grow, my journey of fitness, that led me into kind of a part-time job at the gym, which I now kind of do. I work as kind of a fitness trainer, trainee type of a thing. So I have a couple clients a couple times a week and they'll come in and I'll get to show them the machines and I'll get to work out with them. And so looking all the way back to when I first started going, I had to put into practice measured self-growth, consistency, building momentum, and kind of that 1 to 5% growth, looking back once a month or so. What am I doing? How is this working? A lot of self-reflection. But talk about a little bit before I move to point 3, how that translates really to developing other people, right? They're watching us, they're seeing us, measuring ourselves. How does that help influence others?
Well, if we take your fitness journey as a prime example, if he wasn't successful, if he didn't have the consistency, why would people come to him? Remember, in a gym, you're not in there by yourself. You have other people watching. We talked about this, right? People just watching you and they're, what are they doing? Oh, that's a good idea. I might do that. Oh, like that's weird. Why is he doing that? We're influencing others, good or bad, by just being in the world. So in leadership, it's the same way. If you're consistent in your leadership development, your growth, people are going to see that. They're going to take note of that. They're going to be interested and they're going to see the change in you. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
You don't always see the change in yourself right away. That's why I had my former boss go, what's my brain? What are other people saying about me? So I can get a handle on that of how well that my consistency is or isn't paying off.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean you can't pause and life circumstances come in and I can't focus on growing right now. I got this big storm of life happening. I got to focus on just doing the job for the moment,
Surviving the
moment,
Yeah.
getting through the storm of life,
Wow.
and then coming back around and working on this again. That's okay.
Right.
That is absolutely okay. And another thing that's absolutely okay is making mistakes.
Yeah.
If anybody asks, you can tell them Bill gave you permission to make mistakes.
And Jared approved, right?
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
we don't learn from our successes. We learn the most from our mistakes and our failures.
And this leads us, Bill, to number 3. So number 1, you've got practice and following. You have some good examples, people you look up to and always be looking for those examples to follow. Then you've got practice measuring self-growth, right? Consistency, building this momentum, being okay with failing, which we'll probably talk about at some point, failing
5% rule of growth.
5% rule of growth, right? but remembering number 3, which is
Be patient.
be patient with
Be
yourself.
patient.
This is a journey, right? It takes time. It's a lifetime journey. That's why there's a 5% growth. So be patient with yourself. Nothing worth doing comes easy. Keep working at it. Talk about that for a minute, Bill.
Yeah. Leadership is a journey, right? If you have children and you put them against the wall and they put a line to measure their height and then come back a month later and you do it again.
There's probably an app to that now.
Right. There's going to be, absolutely. So I was old fashioned. My dad did it the old fashioned way, the pencil. And
We had a big, huge life-size ruler like glued to it and screwed to the wall.
yeah, we had stairs going to the basement. There was wood frame stairs, and one of the posts would be where we measured our height.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of my growth until I went back, had my dad measure me again, and I stood away and I'm like, oh,
You'd be patient that whole time.
wow, right? And I just couldn't wait for the next marker. I'm like, I can't wait to get taller. Well, now I'm 6'3". I'm done. But being patient, just allowing life to happen, allowing to learn through life, learning through tough leadership experiences, learning through wonderful leadership experiences, and going, just because I fail doesn't mean I'm a failure. That means that's an opportunity for us to learn and grow.
Yeah, I heard a while back, you only fail when you fail to try. So if you stop trying, well, maybe that's failure. If you're trying, if you're putting one foot in front of the other. But that kind of brings me to this, nothing worth doing comes easy. And for me, when I was thinking about what I was going to try to communicate today with this point of nothing worth doing comes easy, the two biggest things for me are my marriage and my children. You know what I'm saying? As a man, you're trying to lead your family, you're trying to be that example for your wife, your kids. You're a mom, same thing. You want to be able to be that example for your husband and you be there for him and your children. And so I began to think through, man, nothing worth doing comes easy. And I began to think through parenting and marriage on this whole idea of being patient. That's tough. I mean, I'm trying to grow, right, and level up my influence as a leader in the home. And I can't tell you how many times, Bill, that I've had to go to my children, right, and ask forgiveness from them. Like, hey, Dad's sorry. I haven't parented teenagers before. This is my first time. Could you be patient with me?
Right.
And, that in itself influences, your children.
You're essentially
Spouse.
teaching them how to own your mistakes,
Right.
which in itself is another way to influence when you own your own mistakes.
Right. And it shows them, hey, Dad's, he has the ability to kind of be patient with himself, and that's a big deal, I think. But you had an example of this too.
Yeah, I get actually two. When my son was young, we bought him a little wooden model kit of an airplane. You paint it and put it together. And I was trying to show him how to do it. And he wasn't interested. He just had his own idea of the way it should go together. And he didn't care if the paint spilled over from the wing to the body and vice versa. And he just wanted to do it. It was a fun, creative, and he was really young. He was like 7 or 8 years old. And I got so frustrated. I got so mad. That's not the right way. And I got to realize
to do it.
Yeah. And I'm like, if I want to engage my influence with my son more, I have to be patient with myself and with them. And there's patience that I need to exercise in those, both of those areas, right? We got to keep that in mind when we're leading others. Everybody is on their own journey. Everybody has a history, their storms of life, their baggage, if you forgive the word, their experiences, good and bad. We don't always know what all of those are, do we?
No, we don't.
We got to assume positive intent and leverage patience. And then patience with myself, like, Bill, that wasn't the best way to parent your son in that moment, building that model airplane. And next time I did that. I did better. I said, hey, this is yours to do as you see fit. If you want my advice, my help, let me know. Happy to help.
Yeah.
And then make it a little more practical in the work environment. A few years back, I had an ambition to move up, and at work, we measure your success in 3 areas. Either you meet expectations, or you exceed, or you need improvement.
You need improvement.
Yeah. So, and I made a goal of trying to get 3 succeeds or 3 exceeds. And my wife came to me one day and said, "You're not leaving your work voice at work. You're using your work voice with," and that was just an epiphany of what I was trying to accomplish at work, spilling over in not a good way into my family. So I had to slow down, back off, and be patient with my own growth, whether that's to a new position or having the ability to influence this person more. It's a process. It's a journey. You need to be patient. And again, you have my permission to make mistakes and learn from them. That does not make you a failure. It does not.
Yeah. So you've got practice following. Okay. You've got practice measuring self growth, 5% rule. Then you've got being patient.
Being patient.
So we got 2 more. And number 4 is find a leadership partner.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. Right. Exactly. Bill and Jared, right? Leadership partner. You can't do this on your own. Right. I think is it Maxwell that says, or quote somebody else, you can help me with this, like 1 is too small a number for greatness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you need someone to come alongside of yourself and help you to grow in these areas.
I recently listened to a leadership podcast and they talked about needing a peer to encouraging you, needing a cheerleader to cheer you on, and needing a friend to talk to. And we need all 3 of those in our lives as leaders to help us maintain that consistency that builds momentum.
You really do.
Yeah.
You really do. I mean, there have been times for me personally, trying to just do basic life.
Yeah.
And realizing I can't even do basic life by myself. Even my friends who are introverted will admit this. I'm kind of an extrovert. You're more of an introvert.
Yep.
And they'll even mention, yeah, I mean, I can have my moments in my time, but even basic life is hard to do by myself.
Having a partner like Jared, he's been the greatest support, encouragement, counselor, brought wisdom into my life. He's another set of eyes viewing my circumstances from outside of me that has a different, Jared grew up in a different place. He had different parents than I did. He had different experiences. So what he's bringing to the table to my life are things that I probably would have never thought of if I didn't have him as a partner in leadership. So
yeah, and it's one of those things for me with partnering with Bill. I'll often come into our meets together, our hangout times, our content planning, whenever, and we'll get together and I'll just start venting about something that's going on and I'll spill some stuff and then Bill will have a one-liner. He'll have this little phrase that like, oh, that's what I was trying to say for the last 10 minutes. And Bill will simply say, I know, but you got to remember I've been, doing this for a while. So you need people. And one of the other things I want to throw in here too is one of the things that I get to teach, again, I come from the pastoral ministries, is, we teach a lot on community. So we talk a lot about, have your real inner circles, which would be, for most of us, it'd be kind of our wife, our leadership partner, someone you really are close with, you share with, and then have a team, like you said, a cheerleader, other people that surround you as a person. Again, you can practice these 5 things with them, right? And then you have kind of the greater people in your lives, but at least start with finding a leadership partner with which to do leadership with.
Yeah. Big, huge advantage. It'll give you a lot more fuel in your tank to move down the road and be that consistency that builds the momentum.
That's
for
wonderful.
sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So number 5, let me do the last one, almost there.
At the end.
Create a personal growth plan.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. A little page out of Maxwell's book, John Maxwell, talks about this. Other leaders talk about this.
There's a book on this.
There's a book on this.
And Maxwell has a book on this.
Right. So creating a personal growth plan. What is a personal growth plan?
It's a way to write down the areas that you want to move forward in 1 or 5% at a time and share that with your partner.
Right.
So they can help you evaluate whether you're succeeding that or Noah.
Then you can hold your feet to the fire too.
And
Hey,
you
you
will
said you were
hold
gonna do
my
this.
feet to the fire. Exactly. Exactly. So it's also a way of being intentional. You know, if you don't have a target to aim at, you're going to miss it every time, kind of thing. You've heard that before.
Yeah. And
And not having a plan, how can you be intentional if there's nothing to shoot for? If you have a goal in front of you, the areas of your life you want to focus on, intentionality has much more power behind it, right? It gives you the opportunity to move down the field, move the ball down the field, so to
Yeah,
speak,
no, exactly.
in those areas. And so we're going to share with you, I'm going to share with you my growth plan. I just created this a few weeks ago after reading a few books on leadership. And again, just word of caution, I guess, you know, pause, break, hang on. We're people of faith. It's going to leak through. We had no intention or desire to force our worldview on you in any way whatsoever. But we do want to bring cookies to the bottom shelf so everyone can have some in regards to leadership, right?
We want to be raw too.
Yeah.
We started this podcast. We want to be real as people. We don't want to.
We're going to be authentic.
Yeah, authentic.
Yeah, that's who we are. And if this is not part of your authentic journey, please still hang out. You're going to find value added to your life in this process. So here's my growth plan for what it is. For me, my faith, number one, connecting with God every day and reading the Bible and praying every day. That's number one. Number two, studying leadership daily. Every day I'm opening a book, reading a chapter, a portion, listening to a podcast, whatever it may be. I am studying leadership every day as I go forward.
That's great.
Yeah. And really, number three, focusing on valuing people as valuable. In the same way, I believe I believe God took time out of his day to create you uniquely as you are. And that alone makes you valuable. So, and having that mindset as people are valuable. I'm an introvert. I don't know about y'all, but I could go 3 months without talking to anybody and be perfectly fine.
He wants
Right.
the cabin in the woods with 1,000 acres that no one else
There you go.
around.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah.
But how can I add value to other people's lives if that's my approach to life, if that's what I actually do? And sometimes as an introvert, I need to recharge my batteries and I do that alone. And that means, you know, people go away. And sometimes my mind slips into an area of, well, people are the enemy because I'm not able to recharge right now. They're making this difficult for me. And making that shift in my mind and my leadership journey is just consistently saying, these people are valuable. It's worth interacting. So I want to walk slowly through the crowd, as John Maxwell says, right? When he goes up and goes somewhere to speak, before he gets up and speaks, he slowly walks through the crowd to connect with people, right?
Just a good principle in general.
It is. It is. So that's number three, walking slowly through the crowd, viewing people as valuable. Number four, I want to focus on sowing, not reaping. I'm not here to drive results of you for our benefit. We talked about that before. I just want to reap. I want to sow into your life. And if growth happens, great, wonderful. I love being the audience to see that growth.
So let them read.
Yeah. So, you know, sowing and leading the growth up to you and in your life experiences. And please share with us your life experience. We have an email address.
Yeah, we do.
influence@thevalueaddedpodcast.com. So if you want to share your leadership journey, what you're learning, if you have questions you want to ask us or things you want to talk about,
Open to conversation.
we're
as
open
much as
to
we can.
conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So check that out. So anyways, number five, growth through failure. As I mentioned earlier, just because I failed doesn't mean I'm a failure.
Yeah.
That means it's an
Yeah.
opportunity to
Yeah.
learn and grow. Fail forward, as we say.
Fail forward. Yeah.
Every day seek ways to add value to people. Everyone I run into, I can add value to them. You know, often through just a word of encouragement or a word of complimenting. How can you tell someone needs encouragement? They're breathing,
They're breathing.
right? We all need that fuel in our tank of encouragement. It feeds the soul. 7, be consistency. It's that consistency builds momentum. And number 8, take practice of every opportunity to communicate. I do some speaking at churches and what have you. So every time I can, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to practice my communication. So those are the areas of my growth plan.
Yeah, mine you'll see is there's some similarities in there because Bill and I have been journeying together as leaders for a while. My number one daily action, I got daily actions and I got reminders. So that's how I structured my growth plan. I got daily actions and then I got reminders. So my 5 daily actions are: one, connect with God through scripture and prayer. That's an obvious one for me, a man of faith. Number two is connect with and add value to one person. So on a daily basis, I want to try and connect with at least one person. I want to add value to that one person. Number three for me, exercise. I've noticed for me the link between my health, my mind, and then my ability to pour into other people. So I need my time to be able to stay as healthy as I can, body and mind. Uh, Number four for me is study leadership and character.
Yeah.
I think leadership and character go hand in hand. I've never met a leader worth following that doesn't have good, strong character as a person. So for me, I study leadership and character. And then my fifth daily action is journal to reflect and process. Sometimes that's just, hey, this is what I did today, dear Jared type of thing. Other times it's 5 pages of you name it. You just start writing about your day and then it just spills into other things. And that helps me process and kind of self-measure, if you will, almost. But so those are my 5 actions. And then my 3 reminders are pretty simple. Number one, focus on consistency and healthy habit building. For me, I believe that every choice we make, if it's repeated, leads to a habit. And then those habits, when you feed them with those repeated choices, becomes
Results.
well, yes,
Consequences.
it's choices become habits, and then habits become a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And then the lifestyle becomes who you are, your character. So choices, habits, lifestyle, character.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to build healthy habits. So, and then number 2 is focus on sowing rather than reaping, which Bill mentioned. And then my last reminder for myself is don't be afraid to fail forward.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, some of the same things we're communicating to you are things that we're trying to practice.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important that you begin to create a growth plan for yourself. And it doesn't have to be as extensive as ours. It could be 1 or 2 things. It could be one
Excellent.
thing you want to do.
Yeah.
But for us, just where we are in our journey, so that's,
Make it realistic. Don't overburden
Yeah.
yourself with too many things at once. I would encourage you not to do as many. I have 8. I would encourage you to do 4 or 5 max, and then practice those. And as you start to see significant growth, when they start becoming a habit of growth, move one off, move another on, kind of thing. And I will add one last thing. There's an umbrella under which all of my growth plan falls. And that umbrella is live for eulogy virtues, not for resume virtues. I want to make sure I live a life well.
Yeah.
And that there's a good reputation, legacy behind it,
Yeah.
not just to build up my resume and self-worth, so to speak. So live for eulogy virtues, not for resume virtues.
My dad often asks, what kind of legacy are you leaving behind? Right. So again, these 5 things, we really believe if you can do these 5 things, if you can practice following, if you can practice measuring your self-growth, if you can practice being patient, if you can practice finding a leadership partner, if you can practice creating a personal growth plan, or if you can do these 5 things consistently, practice these 5 things, we believe it will help us, because we're doing this too.
Yeah.
We believe it's going to help us overcome the greatest leadership challenge of leading ourselves.
And there's some good things as we've had some growth behind us. There's some things that we've noticed that we really like being on the other side of the growth.
Yeah. Glad I'm through that season
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I like myself more.
Yeah.
If I see myself growing and moving forward, I like my confidence.
Yes.
grows.
A deeper reservoir of confidence.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
more of a reservoir there to grow. I've had
Yeah.
success and growth. I can get through this and I can grow through this.
And your wisdom well is deeper.
It is. It is. Just my frame of reference builds and grows and moves. And as I experience more leadership opportunities, and there's wisdom learned as you do that. So you have this wealth of wisdom to pull on as you get to the other side, once you get to the other side of growth.
So true.
So
Again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're going to leave you with just one application, and that is perhaps it's time for you too to go and create a growth plan. And drop us an email and let us know if you get a chance to do that and how it works for you in the future. We'd love to see you and connect. So,
thanks for watching. We appreciate you. And we'll be back in a week with another video.
See you next time.
See you next time.